Welcome to the Robbinsdale Chamber of Commerce Candidate Forum. I'm Dave Kaiser from Channel 12. I'll be your moderator today. We have two parts to the forum. We will have the legislative candidates for State Representative District 45B, and then also city candidates for City Council Ward 3 and also Ward 4. The outline of today's forum is each candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening statement. We'll have questions from the chamber and from the audience, and then an opportunity for a closing statement from each candidate. We begin with State Representative District 45B, and we have the two candidates with us today. Joining us is Alma Wetzger, one of the candidates, and next to him, Mike Freiberg, one of the candidates as well for this seat. We will start with the opening statements. Alma, you will go first with 2 minutes for your opening statement.
Thank you. I'm Alma Wetzger. It says so on the label. I'm running largely because, as a small business owner, things aren't working as well for me the last couple of years as they have been in years past. My fundamental viewpoint is I'm an engineer. I solve problems. That's what I've been trained to do. That's what I like to do. That's what my inclination is, to fix problems. I understand that there's differences in values and differences in viewpoints, but we should be able to meet somewhere in the middle where everybody gets what they want. I'm disturbed by the idea that throwing money at a problem is a way to solve it. There's got to be a better way because there's not an endless supply of money. And as business owners, we need to recognize that there are limits. I like solving problems. I like negotiating. I've had some background in doing both through business in the corporate world and as a business owner myself. I've been in the area for almost 20 years. I'm here with my wife, who's in the audience. We raised 7 children here. We love the community, we love the state, and it's time for us to be number one again. We need to get back on top. And that's the main reason why I'm running. It's my turn to give back to my community.
Thank you very much. Next opening statement from Mike Freiberg. Mike?
Hi, I'm Mike Freiberg, and I'm running for re-election to the Minnesota House of Representatives for District 45B, which includes parts of Crystal, Golden Valley, New Hope, and all of the great city of Robbinsdale. It's been a privilege to serve you these past 2 years, and Minnesota has made so much progress during that time. With my support, we were able to balance the state budget without gimmicks, guarantee all-day kindergarten, pay back our schools, freeze tuition at Minnesota's public colleges and universities, invest in early childhood education, adopt the Women's Economic Security Act, and enact marriage equality. These are critical investments that are improving the state of Minnesota and are already having an effect, and I don't view them as throwing money at problems. I view them as critical investments in our state. Now, I've been a strong advocate for our communities here in the northwest suburbs. When the legislature decided to exempt local governments from paying sales tax, it didn't exempt local governments operating efficiently through joint powers organizations. An example of a joint powers organization is the West Metro Fire Rescue District, which serves Crystal and New Hope. I listened to the cities in my district and successfully fought to exempt joint powers organizations like West Metro from sales tax, and this will help keep our property taxes down. I was also a strong supporter of restoring local government aid to our communities, and in part because of this, Robbinsdale was able to keep its property tax levy down. Because of work like this, the League of Minnesota Cities twice named me a legislator of distinction, and I was proud to receive that honor. I look forward to discussing the issues facing the district and facing Robbinsdale in the upcoming debate. I hope that when you're done, you'll support me on November 4th. I'd like to thank the Robbinsdale Chamber of Commerce for sponsoring this debate, and once again, I'd like to thank my opponent, Mr. Wetzger, for running a positive campaign that's been focused on the issues facing our district.
Thank you very much. Again, if anyone in the audience has questions throughout the first part of the forum, jot those on the card, let Annette know, and we will get those up here. First question is, and we'll go to Mike first, what has been the extent of your campaigning this year, and what would be 1, 2, 3 things that you've learned or heard from residents as you've been out campaigning?
Sure. Thank you for that question, Dave. Well, I've been campaigning hard. I did pretty well in the election 2 years ago, but I'm not taking my reelection campaign for granted. Certainly nobody is entitled to a seat in the legislature, and they have to work to meet people to do that. So I've been door knocking consistently. Most of the doors in the district should be covered either by me or a volunteer before the election's over. I've been raising money and sending out mail pieces to the residents of this district so that they know more about me, and hopefully I haven't filled up their mailboxes too much. And I've been doing everything else that's part of these campaigns, whether it's putting up lawn signs, attending events, attending debates like this, and so forth. Generally when I'm at the doors, you also asked what I've been hearing. People have been pretty positive. I think some of the investments we made are really being felt. There's a lot of young families in this district. I consider my family to be a young family too. I have 2 kids, ages 2 and 4, almost 5. My daughter will be attending kindergarten next year. I see a lot of families who are benefiting from the all-day kindergarten that just started this year. They appreciate that. There are GLBT families in this. They appreciate the work we did in this district. They appreciate the work we did on marriage equality. There are parents with college-age children, and they appreciate the tuition freeze that we put in place. Tuition has been steadily rising over the last few years, and just because of cuts to higher education, and I'm glad that we were finally able to reverse that trend.
Thank you, Mike. Alma, same question. Extent of your campaigning. 1, 2, 3 things you have heard as you've been campaigning.
This is my first time running for an office, so I've been learning a whole lot. I've actually been accomplishing a whole lot. As far as my campaigning goes, I said I was an engineer. I look at things a little bit differently. Since the redistricting in 2000, this seat and most in the area have been solidly Democratic. That's just the way the districting goes. I've been getting a lot of advice to do the same thing that's always been done, and I don't want to get the same 42% of the vote. I think I can get better than that. So I've been trying things that are a little bit new. I've been laggard in putting up signs, and I have been talking to a lot of people in small groups. I have been putting up leaflets. I have been knocking on doors. What do I hear? Well, in some areas I get an earful about the Bottineau light rail line, and not all of that's good. A lot of people are just feeling like they're not making it. There's not any one thing that they can put their finger on, but it's just not there. And we are recovering as far as income, but we're in retrograde because of fees and some of the taxes. So those are the things that I've been hearing.
Thank you very much. Next question, we'll start with Alma. What are your top priorities for the state? If elected, what would be the top priorities you would work on?
I did a quick look at the Secretary of State website and see that small business formation and retention has kind of fallen off the edge of a cliff. We're just not forming small businesses like we used to. And in my opinion, small businesses are the foundation of good paying jobs. If you look at my literature, I'm not here for a minimum wage. I want everybody to earn a maximum wage. We're better than that. One of the benefits of a research university is those small groups of students who say, that was a cool senior project, I think we can do something with this. And they form these small startups that employ 4, 5, 7, 8 people at a good wage where they can pay student loans, housing, and food, and gain critical management skills and experience. Those types of companies and those types of jobs just aren't here. They stopped. And I want to get that reignited. That's really my first priority.
Thank you. Mike, same question. Top priorities you see for the state?
Sure. Thanks, Dave. First of all, I think we need to pass a comprehensive transportation funding package that includes light rail. I think this will help us keep the region competitive with other regions. And we've all seen how bad potholes were after the last summer. I mean, essentially the gas tax doesn't cover what it used to. People's driving habits are changing. Cars are more fuel efficient. So I think, we need to look at we need to revisit the gas tax. I think looking at maybe a tax on the wholesale level might be one thing worth considering. And then second to transportation, I think we need to continue to focus on education. So during the past session, we funded early childhood scholarships, and I think that was a good start. But I don't think it went far enough, actually. I think, if people want to take advantage of early childhood options, they should be able to. And there's been a waiting, and people want to. There's actually a waiting list for the early childhood scholarships that we adopted. So I think continuing to invest in early childhood education will be critical. I think studies show that the sooner children start learning, the better prepared they are to go into the workforce later in life. And then I think we need to continue to look at the cost of college. I mentioned that it was rising steadily over the last several years. We were able to freeze the tuition. I think that was a good first step. But I think the University of Minnesota, the Minsky system, these were created with the feeling that they would be available for people in Minnesota, and just students are coming out with crushing debt. I mean, I still pay off. I'm 38 years old. I still pay off debt from my undergraduate years, and I'm not as indebted as many students are these days. So I think we need to continue to look at the cost of college.
Thank you. Next question from the audience is, how do you see the legislature working with school districts on behalf of our youth and students? And we will start with Mike.
Sure. Well, I think, I've mentioned several of the investments that we made in education during the past session. I mentioned all-day kindergarten, early childhood scholarships. We increased the general education funding formula. So in the previous session, the 2011-2012 session, the legislature borrowed money against the schools to help cover the budget deficit. So we were able to create a budget without gimmicks, and that fully paid back the schools. But it's not, as Alma said, I would agree, it's not just about throwing money at a situation. I think we need strong school districts. I have a good relationship with the school board, the Robbinsdale School Board, and I certainly strongly support the referendum, both questions that are on the ballot this year. So I'm open to suggestions from them. I have an open door, open phone, open email policy. If people have suggestions on education, whether they're from the school board or parents or just concerned citizens.
Thank you. Alma, same question. How do you see the legislature working with school districts on behalf of our youth and students?
One of the things is, and I'm largely on the same page with Mike here, so there's not going to be a huge distinction. First off, we need to get the referendums passed. That is a major issue that needs to be dealt with right now. I think the best thing that we can do as legislatures, at least for the next couple of years, is stop coming up with new programs that the school districts are supposed to implement. Stop making changes so they can come up with a real budget and actually stick to it without making big disruptive changes for just a year or two. Over the long haul, I see a more sharpening, a more focusing of effort so that there's less, the school district does everything for everybody, prenatal to grave, but focuses more on K through 12. That's what I'd like to see.
Thank you. Next question from the audience, and I'll try to condense as much as possible here. Are you ready for this? Currently, the Minnesota Child Protection social workers do not have adequate funding to investigate all of the reported cases of abuse and neglect in Minnesota. How do you propose to protect the children in Minnesota where there is currently inadequate funding? I will leave you the card in front of you as well if you want to take a look.
It'd take me longer than that to read it. We've got inadequate funding everywhere because we're trying to do everything for everybody. We need to care for our children. We need to care for our children as a community, as a neighborhood, and as people. We need to make sure that happens. The answer to everything is always more money, right? No. We need to have better access to what's going on. I've seen that we do have the funds to address some of these things, but largely it's a people problem where things get dropped. Someone's jaded, someone's not paying attention, or someone's just too busy with something else to pay attention to a critical clue, and someone ends up hurt. We can't protect everybody from everything in a free society. But if we have a little bit better training and a little more focus, we can catch some of the lapses that have fallen through the cracks.
Thank you. Mike, same question for you.
Thank you. Well, I certainly believe the child protection system is probably inadequately funded. I think that's something that the legislature is going to look at next year, particularly given some of the publicity that's been surrounding that system over the last few months. I mean, certainly, I assume most people here have read the tragic story of Eric Dean, the young boy whose stepmother ended up killing him, and clearly the system failed him. So we need to, we need to look at funding for the system. But I think more than just funding in that case, I think we need to reevaluate some of the policies in the child protection system. I know that recently, following the situation with Eric Dean, the governor created a task force to look at the child protection system, make recommendations to the legislature, conduct random inspections of what's going on. So I certainly support those actions. I imagine the recommendations made to the legislature will be one of the first things that we do when the new legislature convenes in January. And if I'm still there, I certainly think that's something we should do, and I will certainly support efforts to improve the system.
Thank you. Final question for our legislative candidates from the audience, and then we'll have a moment for their closing statements. And we'll start with Mike. The question is, will Minnesota consider accepting the same asset additions deductions as the federal government? Currently, items added in excess of $25,000 must be spread over 5 years rather than immediate write-off. This is too complicated, our question says. Mike?
I would agree. Both the question and the tax situation that being described are both complicated. I don't know all the specifics of that particular write-off. During the past session, we did adopt tax conformity to ensure that the state tax system conforms with the federal tax system. And that's something I know that comes up frequently during the legislative session. So I supported the tax bill that did that. So this is certainly something I'd be willing to look at during the next session. Generally speaking, we did provide tax relief to a majority of Minnesota residents. Whether particularly in the property tax area, we passed a couple property tax relief bills, and we also did things such as increasing local government aid, exempting local governments and joint powers organizations from paying sales tax. And I think those sorts of situations, combined with things like federal conformity, are ways to help improve the tax climate for residents in Minnesota.
Thank you. Alma?
This is a job for a computer. You've got all this complicated stuff. One of the things I started out with in a retail environment spanning the nation was the taxing districts for sales tax. Government does something different everywhere. In a lot of cases, we had to outsource to an expert to keep up with all the different regions and all the different sales tax rates. This is something that's, as far as complicated, you either have an accountant or tax software that'll do it for you. Do I support keeping things in harmony with the feds to eliminate that or reduce that complexity? Absolutely. But we're going to run into it no matter what. If you're filing taxes as a business, you need to use software or an accounting firm anyway.
Thank you. We now have time for the closing statements, and then we will shift over to the Robbinsdale City candidates, and we'll start with the closing statement with Mike. Mike?
Sure. First of all, I'd like to once again thank the Robbinsdale Chamber of Commerce for sponsoring this debate, as well as my opponent for running a positive campaign. We've made so much progress over the last 2 years, and I hope you'll give me the chance to continue the work I started. If you look at where we were 2 years ago, we had a debt owed to our schools. We had a government shutdown. We had divisive constitutional amendments on the ballot. Look at all of the great things we've accomplished over the last 2 years in contrast. A balanced budget without gimmicks, all-day kindergarten, property tax relief, a tuition freeze, marriage equality, investments in early childhood education. The record of progress is clear. But there's more to be done, and we can't rest on our laurels. If reelected, I will focus on a comprehensive transportation funding package that includes mass transit. I will work to invest further in early childhood education, and I will work to continue to address the cost of college. I hope you'll consider supporting me, Mike Freiberg, and thank you all for attending this important debate.
Thank you. Mike? Alma?
Thanks, Mike. I really appreciate Mike as an opponent. It's not personal. We have a different view of what will make the best Minnesota in the short term. Our goals are the same, the best Minnesota and the best state in the nation. In the last couple of years, our small businesses, a driver of most, like 85% of new jobs, has gone off a cliff, fallen way off. And we're losing Fortune 500 companies, which is what Fortune magazine uses to rate Minnesota as one of the top places to do business. So that's a trailing indicator. All the wonderful things Mike's talked about won't do any good if there aren't jobs that pay a good wage. I'm not talking about let's cut taxes to the bone. We live in a state that has winter. We need taxes to pay for our infrastructure, if only from environmental needs. So I'm not talking about necessarily taking taxes to Tennessee levels or even South Dakota levels, but we need to make the punitive regulations and taxes on our business formation and operations less onerous. We've got some of the best teachers, some of the best schools in the nation. We need to let our teachers work on that and let our test scores reflect that.
Thank you very much, and thank you to both of the candidates for joining us today. They both have literature on the back table. Please join me in thanking the candidates for joining us today.
You watch Channel 12 at home. Why not on the go? Channel 12 is online at 12.tv. Watch on your phone, on your tablet. Channel 12 is your local source wherever you go. Just log on to 12.tv. Check out our videos, subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and even watch live events via live stream. So don't wait. Stay up to date with Channel 12 and 12.tv, your local source.
And welcome back to the Robbinsdale Chamber of Commerce Candidate Forum. As you can see, we have shifted gears to the Robbinsdale City candidates. I am joined by candidates for Ward 3 for the City of Robbinsdale and one candidate for Ward 4, as Ward 4 is unopposed. Again, same format as the first part of our forum. We'll have 2 minutes for an opening statement, then questions from the chamber and from the audience, and then 2 minutes for a closing statement. Our candidates are, as you see at the table on the far left, from Ward 3, Dennis Model. From Ward 3, George Selman, and Ward 4, Pat Backen. And we will start with the opening statements. And Dennis, we will start with you, please.
Thank you very much for putting this on and having me out today. Just real real briefly, I'm running for a couple of reasons. One is I think that the city of Robbinsdale has perhaps a perception issue in the greater community out there. And I firmly believe that we are a very good community to live in. We have close proximity to the greater downtown area, good commuter town, all that kind of thing. And I would like to see more people coming here to not only live here, but to work here and to play here, making it their home. On top of that, my wife and I have lived here since 2001. Our children were born in the hospital just down the way, North Memorial, and they're going to Spanish immersion, the Robbinsdale Spanish immersion program in the 3rd grade currently. So we really love living here, and I'm running because I wanted to give something back to the community that has given us so much so far.
Thank you, Dennis. Next opening statement from George Selman. George?
Thank you, Dave. And thanks to the Chamber for having this event again. Most of all, I want to thank the people of the 3rd Ward for entrusting this job to me over the past 2 terms, and I hope that they entrust it to me for 1 more. My wife and I have called Robbinsdale home since 1978. Our daughters, Christy and Kelly, and their husbands and their combined 5 children all live in Robbinsdale. And so we have 3 generations of my family relying on the work that this council does every day, month, and year. I'm really proud of my record of service to Robbinsdale over the past 25 years, long before I was on the council. And I'll speak more to that later. I'm most proud of the council itself and the way we've worked together. We work diligently, far more than you see at the meetings you might watch on TV or online, to improve Robbinsdale's image locally and regionally, and we've done a tremendous job. If you look at our downtown and you read some of the ratings of some of the businesses, it's an astounding story that little Robbinsdale is back on the map in a positive way, and I'm so excited about it. When I retired several years ago, I did start since then 2 businesses, and I'm now unretired. One business that is based in Robbinsdale, Bark and Bathe, and I own another business that's a bonus commercial cleaning care that both are both members of the Robbinsdale Chamber. And when that business's Woodbury lease is up in early next year, they will be moving to Robbinsdale also. That's how excited I am about the work we're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, George. And again, the candidate for Ward 4 is Pat Backen, and he is unopposed. But we certainly wanted to have him with us today. Your opening statement.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks to the Chamber. As George mentioned, the Chamber is one of Robbinsdale's, kind of hidden gems, I think, and you guys do so much work with the meet and greet and the Easter egg hunt. It's just really the extravaganza, excuse me. It's just great to have the Chamber so active in town, so thank you guys for this. So I've had a really fun, great 4 years. I'm thrilled to be able to continue, assuming that my wife doesn't, maneuver somehow and get a write-in campaign against me. But and so, like George mentioned, we really do have a great council. We work together tremendously well as a team. We really respect each other. We're not fighting with each other, and we're all working with the best interests of Robbinsdale at heart. So it's been fantastic. We have made tons of progress. Like George mentioned, I think we're kind of on the same page here. Lots of new businesses. We have EDA lots. The Economic Development Authority buys lots, and we can't keep those lots. We buy the lots, and even before we possess them, people are wanting to buy them. So there are people moving into Robbinsdale and building new homes, and it's great to see the young new families. And of course, we do have some holes. I think the Rainbow site is a good example. And we're not sitting around waiting for things to happen. We had a developer roundtable where we invited developers in to find out about Robbinsdale and some of the opportunities that we had. Excuse me. And it was tremendously successful. We've had quite a few people interested. We've had some proposals that have been received and more coming in. So we're not sitting around waiting for things to happen. We're actually going out and being proactive. So. And again, I just thank you, and I look forward to the questions.
Second question, we'll start with George, will be what qualifications make you the best candidate for this position?
I think what qualifies me the most is my history of hard work for the city of Robbinsdale. Much of that has been local with local service organizations and in working roles and leadership roles and some of both. But what I'd like to talk about today to answer that question is some of my more less conspicuous things that I've worked on to the citizens of Robbinsdale, and that's more of my regional work that I've done before I was on the council and since I've been on the council. Serving on the Community Advisory Committee for the Bottineau Corridor for a 12-year period was a very rewarding experience. I got to work with communities from Minneapolis all the way up to Rogers, conducting public hearings, making sure people were being heard, and getting their chance to understand and then weigh in on the project as it's evolved and developed. Serving on the Cable Commission is something that I've just started a couple years ago. I'm one of Robbinsdale's representative with Councilmember Blonigan on the Cable Commission, and boy, that's probably the most homework I've had for any of the things I've ever done. Learning and understanding how this TV broadcast that you might be watching at home gets to you successfully by our folks with Northwest Community Television and Channel 12. And serving on the GEARS Committee, which is the Grant Evaluation and Review System for the county's transit improvement taxes that are being collected by 5 of the 7 metro counties. And that represents 92% of the citizens in Robbinsdale, in the Twin Cities. It's to be selected and serve on that really gives me the opportunity to watch out for not just Robbinsdale's interests, but also our neighbors in this region of the Twin Cities.
Thank you. Same question to you, Pat. What qualifications make you the best candidate for the position?
Well, this year it's easy. I'm the only option, so not difficult choice for most people, I think. Really, it's I just love Robbinsdale. I love Robbinsdale to death. I think it's one of the greatest communities in the metro, probably in the state. And so my love for Robbinsdale really kind of is the thing that kind of moves me forward and keeps me really excited and passionate about working for the city. My experience on the council certainly has helped. And like George, I don't have quite the extensive resume as George with volunteering in the community, but I certainly have done my share of that as well. And so it's really just kind of a passion and a love for Robbinsdale, I think, that I hope that people can see.
Thank you, Pat. And Dennis, your qualifications to be a council candidate.
Thanks for the question. One of the things that qualifies me for this position is I've been on the Charter Commission of Robbinsdale since 2003. So having moved here in 2001 with my wife, buying a home in town, I wanted to start helping the community somehow, and being a part of the Charter Commission was a good first step, so I was selected for that. Before settling in Robbinsdale, down in the South Metro, I was on a board, the Family Services, South Hennepin Family Services Board, and that was an opportunity for me to see where some of the local charities are moving money and helping folks in need, and it was a very good opportunity for me to understand, how that works in our world. On top of that, I've said it, once before already, but we love living in Robbinsdale. We love it so much that, we had our children in the only hospital in Robbinsdale. We sent our children to the school district in Robbinsdale, and I plan to, allow for them to graduate from Robbinsdale, and if they choose to settle down here, great. If not, it is what it is. But we do love living here, and we love the opportunity to be a part of this forum, and hope that you'll, consider me.
Thank you. Next question, we will start with Pat, and the question is, what has been the extent of your campaigning this year, and what are the top issues you are hearing as you campaign?
Well, I fortunately have not had to do much campaigning this year, but the kind of the issues that I've been hearing throughout the year, I'm very open on social media. I'm very available via email and phone. Some of those issues are, especially this year, we kind of had a little bit of a crime spurt uptick in my ward. So I've been working with the police and working with neighborhood groups to go out and talk to them and really get more information about them, how to be smaller targets, how to be open to crime prevention tactics and things like that. So,
Thank you. Dennis, extent of your campaigning and some of the comments you're hearing as you campaign.
One of the things that I pride myself on is being someone who understands social media. And, while I don't have a huge following on Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter and all that, I do find my way there and throw my opinions around from time to time so people have an opportunity to learn about me and understand who I am. I've created pages on both LinkedIn and Facebook for you to go out and look at. While there's, again, not a whole bunch of content, there's a page there, and I continually invite people to view it and make comments. On top of that, I was a part of the Meet the Candidates forum, I guess is what it's considered, with Juanita from Channel 12, and that was a whole lot of fun as well to get to meet some of the folks from New Hope was the group that I sat on. And other than that, as far as what people are saying out there, they're really saying while we live in a great community, there are things that we can still do to make it better. And, those things are, helping small businesses grow and allowing entrepreneurs to be entrepreneurs.
Thank you, Dennis. And George, finally your answer, extent of campaigning and things you're hearing as you campaign.
Well, Dave, at the risk of divulging all of my super secret campaign strategies, I've also employed social media. Obviously, yard signs have been popping up. Door knocking. By election day, I will have knocked on every door in my ward with the possible exception of one. But including in my door knocking, I spent 2 evenings door knocking with Representative Freiberg, and as we door knocked together and got to visit with people. It was my first door knocking with him, and it proved to be very productive and very beneficial, I think, for both of us. But the biggest part of my campaigning is just continuing to do the work on the council that I've always done and working campaigning and around that.
Thank you. Next question is related to the budget, and we will start with Dennis. The question is, what is the future of the Robbinsdale city budget, and how do you plan to work with the budget? Dennis?
Well, considering the fact that I am not on the city council yet, and I'm sitting in the presence of two folks who currently are, I'm not going to speak out of turn on things that I haven't spent enough time to understand, but I will say that as far as the budget goes, I know that there is more that the city can do with the money that we're already getting, and I do believe that you guys have done a very good job at holding the line on taxes, tax increases, and I appreciate that of you, and I would certainly consider doing the same in order to, keep the small businesses running and small businesses moving in.
Thank you. George, same question.
The financial situation of the city of Robbinsdale is very good for a city our size and age. Our levy this year cannot exceed 0.99%. I have a feeling that's probably pretty close to where we're going to end up. That's substantially lower than all of our neighbors, our neighboring communities. And we've accomplished that as a council by, at the same time, increasing staffing and services in certain areas that citizens have made us aware that they would like to see improved. The never-ending process of finding ways to save money within the city's budget is exactly that. It's never-ending. Our city staff does a great job of helping us find things. One of the things I did several years ago that ended up resulting in significant savings was pretty much insisting that we put one of our service contractors out for quotes that hadn't been out for several years, and it ended up saving tens of thousands of dollars. I want to say about 80,000 if I remember right, per year, and the service is going along great. And so that's $80,000 we could redirect toward other things and not increase taxes. But the thing I think I'm most proud of when it comes to our budget is the way Robbinsdale took the increased local government aid that the state was kind enough to restore, and we helped not just bank that and spend, but we used that money to keep taxes down in Robbinsdale. And that's what the governor really asked us to do, is to not just go buy stuff with that, but use it to reduce the tax burden on the citizens.
Thank you. And finally, that question to you, Pat, regarding the budget.
I'm not going to have an answer that's much different than George's. We came out of the recession very strong, primarily due to a really strong council and city staff, and making great decisions and paring back where they can. We're running really lean right now, and so we're in a really great position. The one thing I think that we have to be careful about, and we always have kind of our eye on, is local government aid. You know, Robbinsdale is a city that absolutely relies on government aid. I think it's one of the cities that it was designed to help, because we are pretty much landlocked, and there is no more room for growth in Robbinsdale. So, there's some redevelopment options, but no more growth. So, working with the legislature and making sure that LGA stays at least stable is really one of the things that we really have to keep an eye on.
Thank you, and we have time for 2 questions from the audience, and then we'll have time for the closing statements. The first question, we'll start with George, is what are the most pressing infrastructure needs in Robbinsdale, and how can they be funded? George?
2 minutes, huh?
Or a minute and a half, if you would like.
That's Dave's way of saying I went over several times already, I'm sure. Robbinsdale's an old city. Some of our infrastructure is approaching 100 years old, and it's we've really been working hard at replacing it. Especially in the last few years, the Fourth Ward has really had a wholesale restructuring of its water and sewer and road repairs, and those folks down there have incurred the burden of construction and assessments and all the things that are part of that. But one of our biggest infrastructure challenges isn't ours. It's the Joint Water Commission water pipe that runs underneath County Road 42 that comes from Minneapolis Waterworks all the way to Crystal, where it services Crystal, Robbinsdale, or Crystal, Golden Valley, and New Hope. That is probably going to be our biggest challenge, both structurally and financially, and how that is to be funded is yet to be determined, quite honestly.
Thank you. And same question to Pat, infrastructure needs.
As George mentioned, we are an old community. We have a plan to replace many of our roads within the next 20 years. We do about a mile a year, simply because it's so expensive. We don't want to put a burden on the taxpayers by raising taxes to kind of help fund those. And so it's really an ongoing challenge. We are looking at some other ways of doing that, and hopefully we can kind of speed up the process. Some of our roads are in pretty bad condition, so we're looking at ways to kind of help improve those without kind of breaking the bank or having to go with a major tax increase. So it's a challenge, and I think the biggest thing is the replacement of the stuff underneath that you can't see, that's 90 to 100 years old, is the biggest concern, as we've learned pretty blatantly with a couple of sinkholes. Those things happen all throughout the city. They're just smaller pipes. We don't see them as often, but those they're getting old, and we need to change them. So get them replaced.
Thank you. And Dennis, question regarding the infrastructure.
Boy, I sure don't want to repeat what they're saying, but it's quite obvious driving around the city, there are a few places that could use a little bit of attention. It doesn't mean that we are a disheveled city by any stretch of the imagination. I do agree that there are some places we can't see that are causing us issues, and learning more about where we might experience the next pothole or sinkhole, for that matter, would be probably a good idea. One of the things that I do find pretty important are the roads, and I do believe that there are some places in town where we could do a better job of keeping the roads up and that type of thing. But otherwise, really, it's, I guess, the things that you don't see that are the most disturbing. I couldn't imagine being the one to witness the sinkhole occur, or being the one that happened to be the last one to drive over it. It's kind of like driving over the 35W bridge, right? Who was the last person that drove over that before it fell? It's crazy business. As a matter of fact, I was half an hour ahead of it before it fell the day I drove over it on that particular day. So anyway, I just think we need to focus on the things that we can't see.
Thank you very much. Final question from the audience. What are your occupations, and how would your occupation help you serve Robbinsdale on its city council? And we will start with Pat.
I'm a software engineer, and so I have helped discuss, we're going to do our new website here, and I've helped in those discussions and kind of deciding what direction to go and how we're going to do it. I'm going to help volunteer. I volunteered my time outside of the city council to help get that put in place. And I really do believe that technology is a great way to connect people, and so I've used that, use social media, and I have a blog. I use my blog to help get information out. All of those things, I think, come from my technology background. So,
thank you. And same question to you, Dennis. Your occupation and how that would help you on the council.
By trade, I'm a salesperson. I've sold a number of different things in technology, so I agree that technology is a big deal. And one of the things that I'm focused on right now is learning more about cybersecurity, which I think is, while it may not be, a huge threat to every small business in America, it is becoming more of a threat to the infrastructure of our cities and our waterworks and things like that. So in sales, I'm looking to continue in software sales, and cybersecurity as a focus.
Thank you. And George, your occupation and how that helps you serve the city.
Well, my occupation is multifaceted. As I mentioned earlier, I did retire a few years ago. So my occupation was a city council representative for the 3rd Ward of Robbinsdale, which it still is as part of it. I have opened, with my business partner Karen, Bark and Bathe. We are creeping up on our 2nd anniversary. It's going very successfully. And Bonus Building Care, my wife and I own together, is also going very well. And it's the industry I retired from, the commercial cleaning industry, where I spent 35 years making sure buildings are clean and sanitary for people, everything from retail facilities to hospitals and nursing homes.
Thank you. And now we have time for the closing statements. And again, the candidates have jotted down some answers to questions that we could not get to, such as light rail and priorities for the city, although we've covered some of those, and also working with the school district. So if anyone has any questions related to those, you might be able to catch them at a moment after the meeting, or certainly by social media. For the closing statements, and folks, you've done a fantastic job on time today. We are right on schedule. We will start with Pat with his closing statement.
Well, like I mentioned when I started, I just had a really a great, fun 4 years, and I'm thrilled to be able to continue. And I really look forward to maintaining a fantastic city in Robbinsdale and growing it even better. So with that, I will leave it up to the other guys.
Thank you. George?
Well, thanks, Pat, for giving us an extra
You're welcome.
45 seconds each. It's been a pleasure to serve with Pat for this past 4 years. He's done an excellent job, as has the balance of the council that I get to work with. We work very hard, to, as I mentioned earlier, to promote Robbinsdale on a regional basis. And doing those things affords you the opportunity to hear some of the challenges that other cities face. And we're very fortunate in Robbinsdale. We've got a great community. We've got a great business community in the chamber, and the members of our business community that aren't members of the chamber are still a big part of our community. We've got a great city staff, and all of that together really is a formula that a lot of cities wish they had. It's in working with the Bottineau corridor. I'm going to use the balance of my time to probably talk about that. Spending 12 years at the request of Commissioner Opat, which he promised me it would be 2 or 3 years, to serve on the Community Advisory Committee, and eventually I also served on the Policy Advisory Committee. I had the privilege of getting to know a lot of the elected and unelected leadership from other communities. And I was honored to receive from them at the final Policy Advisory Committee an award acknowledging my efforts over that 12-year period. And it's a Distinguished Service Award to George Selman for the Bottineau LRT leadership effort. And when I was very shocked to receive that, it's I started out as a transit hobbyist at best, and I'm still not much more than that. But it's making sure that citizens have an opportunity to weigh in on big projects like this is of critical importance. And the one thing I will always do is listen and make sure you have an opportunity to be heard. If we agree, great. If we don't, we'll work through it. And if the council, the majority of our council tends to dictate how we go, and we don't always agree either, but it's done in a respectful fashion. And I look forward to working with anybody that has any questions or challenges. Thanks to the chamber, and finally ask for your vote on November 4th.
Thank you very much. And Dennis, your closing statement.
I would thank you for having me out. Thank the Chamber of Commerce for that. I would also like to thank George for running a very clean campaign as well, where we know each other from neighborhood block parties and other opportunities like that. So I think that I would ask for your vote on November 4th solely for getting possibly fresh viewpoints into the city. And I've always wanted to serve the community in which I live in a bigger and more important way. While it is an important job, I am not that terribly important. Just one person who wants to make a difference. And I would sure love to have the opportunity to do that here.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your time. Please join me in thanking our candidates for being with us. And again, thank you to the Robbinsdale Chamber for hosting this luncheon and this event, and they encourage you to get out and vote on November 4th. Have a great day.